I've been pondering. This is really a significant evening for me because I've never shared this story I'm about to share, um, and really, what there is to share of it is so much that I really just kind of had to pick and choose what part. I've been through my share of traumas in the world. And it seems that with only a few minutes to work with, I just wanted to maybe hit some of the essential points. And what I did is I think I just, for the sake of brevity, I just went straight to that time in my life when I was about 15, and that'll be good. Going straight to that time when I was about 15 years old. There comes a point when you really realize that life is, I don't know what to realize. I know some of what I realized, and some of it's good, But anyway, I've been working on this for a few days, so I compiled almost everything into mostly poems. Some of it is not just a poem, but this may be kind of strange. This is a story about my experience chasing after understanding the music of the Grateful Dead. In the long run, led me to Nichiren Buddhism. What is mostly omitted is the 3 years of insanity from the moment of my spiritual awakening to trying to find a system of thought and philosophy that matched or complemented what I went through, what I experienced, so that and also the movement from dependent on an external to, as my trigger to open my heart, to becoming self-reliant, to using my voice. So that's kind of the overview. So here we go. I hope you enjoy it. The sun. Since the day that the sun first shone, never resting, never a vacation, never a break. Since the moment I took my first breath, my lungs have not stopped. The pulse never pauses, not for an instant. If ever there were a rest in the heart, the lungs, the flowing of blood, the innumerable functions of the body, death would be a certainty. Why then is the mind so inconsistent? Perfection of memory. I lay on my back working out this riddle that was the music of the Grateful Dead. So many years of musical training did not prepare me for this sound that contradicted every rule I had ever known. If it doesn't hook you in 15 seconds, the band didn't care about that. Was the sound refined or clean? No, it was rigid, chaotic, containing flubs, mistaken notes, dissonance, consonants, and long linear passages. The music flowed more like a meditation than music as I had known. I wanted in. But my distracted state of mind. Listen to a 1972 Dark Star, 30 minutes of mellow, meandering exploration. The band would never stay in a single place very long. Or the December 31st, 1988 Cassidy, which sounds like a completely different band exploring a far more condensed fashion. A music narration that induced visuals in my mind of the mothership at port on some imagined night here on Earth. For nearly a year I listened as though it were an occupation, trying to enter the flow. Brainstorm. I lay upon the floor, flat, outstretched, perhaps relaxed, tall pillars before me, speakers, sound, flow, vibration, wonder. Attempting to focus, large band, electric and flawed, recordings from stadiums and coliseums, roaring crowds or PA feeds. The band is high, the band of a self-mocking nature, taking itself as seriously as classically trained perfectionist making bad choices. Their only conversation is a conversation made of sound, tonal, modal, rambling, yet breathing. So many would perhaps flow like raging rapids every day, every show, night to night. These guys were so different, opening space, exploring silence, exploring dissonance, approaching with the quiet touch, approaching with a near effeminate edge and sound. Perhaps they were just playing into weakness, a certain lack of confidence, the fear by which we approach the unknown. One more night is not a simple act of regurgitation. In the personality of sound, there is room for one more reinvention on the theme, one more new inflection, one more way to turn an open phrase. In the realm of rock and roll, who else would follow this consistent path of risk as a core, unchanging unit? What rock and roll bands sought to speak with the intimate, piercing conviction of Miles, with their limited vocabulary, to infuse another moment with the harmonic and rhythmic inflection of the John Coltrane Quartet. They could not do it themselves, but they were not afraid to be influenced. I lay on my back listening to these sounds, the band sounding so small in their overall tonality. But this was a sound that filled a theater, a coliseum, a stadium. The environment was loud. On tape, all I could perceive was a microcosm. Presented in the macro environment, these sounds were not so small. They were not so small. And these limited recordings, there are certain things that would disappear. Two drummers playing in unison until the conversation would open. A bassist familiar with complex harmony bringing a contrapuntal pathway on the undertow of sound, sinking much deeper than an ordinary groove keeper. A lead guitar relying not on flash and complexity for his brilliance, but on emotive poetry and honest narrative. And a rhythm guitar who infuses playing with ragtime and horn section punches, wrong-sounding chords, right-sounding chords, angular melodic lines that defied reason and rhyme. The chair for the keyboards changed with the times. These were not a group of perfect people. Their brilliance would emerge as small momentary ideas that would come and go. That which held the most substance would ebb and flow, rise and fall, a cathartic arrival only to be abandoned for something new. I lay on the floor and I sought to dwell there. I wanted in. I thought I was just seeking a band. I thought I was only seeking access to music. This strange sound. David Crosby compared it to electric New Orleans jazz, the sound where everybody is simultaneously playing lines, soloing together, so it might seem you might have to hear simultaneous ideas leading from opposite spectrums of the sound to create the connections that make the music work. And that guitar line on top was always deceptively simple compared to the intense rhythmic harmonic action unfolding in the layers below. There was always something throwing some sharp phrase or hiccup that might distract you from the core of the river flowing in whatever direction the winds might blow. I could not follow. I lay there trying and trying. If I became preoccupied with something, a turn of phrase, a beautiful reinvention on the melody, a rhythmic variant, a little extra gusto to a vocal refrain, one moment of distraction could derail my train of thought and I would miss what came next, or how it came to be. I was learning to listen, you might say, but in order to hear, I would have to be as creative and agile as the musical team I was seeking to follow. Displeasure was my spirit. Every time I got lost in a train of thought and missed that moment, when the band traversed from a meandering theme into something purposeful, emotive, and excellent, I wanted to hear how the discoveries would unfold. I didn't want to hear about myself. And yet, one day, I did realize I was clearly reflecting on my own life, in great detail, in fact. This was most unexpected, and with a moment's consideration, I concluded this was a good thing. Now, sometimes I would arrive at the door of realization, and a great pull of gravity would take hold, as though to draw me towards an open door in the mind, and I would catch myself going there, only to respond with shock and surprise and consciously pull back. Whatever it was, my own judgment, my own awareness became my hindrance. And I did not know again how to approach that open door. These moments of mental freedom, unexpected, a rare occurrence, a fascination. How could I prepare myself to not be swayed if arrival should come again? This was exploration. If I could not be open to it, I would not be able to discover this thing. Therefore, I told myself, maybe if I pretend this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And unexpectedly, that was the trigger. Imagine a strand of DNA, 1,000 meters high, or 1,000 miles, doesn't matter. And imagine an elevator that shoots up through that spiraling path in the space of an instant, straight to the top. Laying there on my back, I experienced this sensation, spinning. And it's like I spiraled up into the sky together with my environment. And when I arrived, I was no longer looking through a window into reality. For the first time, I felt no separation between myself and reality. It went deeper still. My memory became flawless. I was free of all contradictions within myself. In fact, I could recognize my bad points and my good points equally and not be swayed. And I was free of all contradictions within myself. In fact, I realized the universe is big enough to hold all contradictions, with enough space for each to exist independently of its contrast. In the present moment, this was no longer a place of observation. It was a place where all history, since time without beginning, is made. I had entered this eternal realm, and I was sober, and this meant for me that if I wanted to go there, all I had to do was listen to the Grateful Dead, and I could open the door at will. And after trying some psychedelic drugs a few years later, actually, that portal came crashing down, and I actually lost the gift that I gained for a little while there. And so I gained a common sense approach to all phenomena, and I realized that by simply pondering the natural laws of the world around us, even the complex questions of birth and death were not so far out of reach. The religious world I'd grown up with, the Jewish, was far more confusing, for example, than the straightforward observations of where I'd now arrived. Furthermore, I realized that my life is connected to this strand of life that has existed since time immemorial, each of us actually, and had this life ceased for even a moment, it would be impossible for me or anybody else to exist. And the sun and moon and the planet, they had observed all of this. By seeing through the eyes of the sun, reality was on full display. My memory, so that was this amazing awakening. What was really intense for me was now there was no guidebook. There was no map. There was no available, I didn't know where to go. How do you find a perspective? If you get there, it's like you feel like, it's so real. It's like, well, you've got to share it, right? But the problem is, like, without any other point of view to help you balance it, I ended up going on a very dark journey for the next few years. In July 1990, about 3 months after this experience, the Grateful Dead keyboard player passed away of a drug overdose. The band decided to go on rather than try and bring in somebody else to replace with a different instrument. They just replaced him with another keyboard player. So you look up the stage and sitting in that guy's spot is like somebody different. A very non-compassionate thing. And the communication with the organization, they were like not talking very well. So the music became very dark. And for the next 3 years, I went very, very dark. So I saw, I read Jack Kerouac's Dharma Bums, and that was kind of the beginning of my entertaining. Like, well, after I finished that, I picked up a guitar and started learning how to play. I sought Hemingway, I sought Ram Dass, Steinbeck, I read the Tao Te Ching daily, I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, wisdom source after wisdom source. I isolated myself. I was smoking weed 24/7. I was drinking, drinking coffee, and I was going, and I was searching. I was trying to find, and I was writing every night when the roommates would no longer allow me to play guitar at night. It was too late. It was like then. It was like right until the sun comes up. Just I wanted to find what it was. I wanted to find my way in. So after hitting a very, very scary state of rock bottom for myself, I was introduced to Nichiren Buddhism, and I had actually, after reading Kerouac, he wrote about that there was a lesser vehicle teaching and a greater vehicle teaching, and I just kind of thought, well, if Buddhism's the teaching of enlightenment, maybe it could help me understand, maybe it could shed insight. So I said, well, if there's a lesser vehicle and a greater vehicle, like Theravada and Mahayana, maybe the Buddha taught separate things at separate times, and therefore maybe he, taught us enlightenment more directly as well. So I just prayed to the universe. I said, I wanted to encounter the Buddhism with the Buddha's seal of approval. That's how I put it. Like, if the Buddha was alive today, which Buddhism would he teach? And I was introduced to the Buddhism of Nichiren. So I moved back to San Francisco in May of 1993. A poet introduced me to a very terrifying interpretation of Nichiren Buddhism. It took me 18 years to get over, how he took some of the dark, some of the, explanations of the practice. Like, actually, in psychology, you talk about fundamental darkness, right? Like, the internal negativity, the functions of internal negativity. I'm not a scholar of psychology. I might still become. That's one of my hopes. Actually, since I was a little kid, I may still follow up on it. But he actually tried to embody it as a personality to me, and that's what scared me so much. When I finally asked about it, and someone just having a friend there to diffuse it was amazing. The incredible thing about it is, Nichiren Buddhism, I didn't have to compromise my experience, but I found a place where that what I experienced is actually elucidated and stated in a way that I fully agree with. And because it's in a community, when I kind of started going towards extremist views, I always had someone to pat me on the back and bring me back, tell me not to take it so seriously, rather than worry about all of that, so just work on myself until I can take care of myself. And then also, because I had experience with like Grateful Dead and other bands that's reliant on music to get me there, it's like, after a while, why do these bands start also scared the crap out of me? One crescendo to the next crescendo, and some music, if you turn it off, it's abrasive. Silence is abrasive. And I had to learn how to start searching out great musicians who, when the music comes to an end, is the silence beautiful? Do the leaves on the trees around you glow? And so I wound up being very fortunate to seek out some really great mentors who showed me, like, wow, there's this power of sound. And I found this quote also, which really impressed me. I just read this last week, which caused me to, or I read it a couple of weeks ago, which caused me to write the first version of this presentation. But this is kind of like what I experienced. I've never heard it or even seen it described in such beautifully concise language as it is here. It was from a discussion on the 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. This guy Sutta says, because we possess the world of Buddhahood, we can manifest faith, and through faith we can open up the world of Buddhahood in our lives. This seems to be the correlation. So the idea that Buddhahood, what is enlightenment? Human enlightenment, as human beings, not something superpowered, not not higher thou or any of that crap, but like, what is the great potential within? So it's like, because we have this potential, we can manifest not necessarily like, and then when they say talk about faith, it's like not faith in, and I think when we're talking about faith, it's like, well, to embrace the present moment completely. And so we can manifest this ability to tap our, a great concentrated determination. And then through that determination, we can open up the enlightenment within oneself. And this guy CIIS says exactly, dwelling in the quote-unquote 9 worlds, or like, the usual reality, the way we usually see things, could be compared to being shut inside of a room. Dwelling in the world of Buddhahood, on the other hand, is like bathing in a clear, bright sunshine. And that's really what I felt. It's like before that time, the first 15 and a half years of my life, it was like I was shut in a room within myself. And when I had that experience, it was like the room was gone, and I was like actually just part of reality. And there was like no separation, kind of similar to what you were saying as well. The beings of the 9 worlds fundamentally dwell in the great macrocosm of the world of Buddhahood. So it's like, whether we perceive it or not, we're still experiencing that. When my perception opened, it was not that. It was not that I changed in reality. It was like just my perception became open. People vaguely sense this as some kind of eternal aspect of their life, but because they were shut up, blah 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 blah. I'm going to skip ahead. So Endo says, when you use the key of your faith or determination to open up the window of your heart to the room of your life, the room of your life is flooded with fresh air and brilliant light from outside. And there is no difference between being in the room or being outside. And so anyway, that's a really quick condensation of so much. I mean, there's so much I could have gone on 20 or 30 pages about this. But influenced by that experience, I wrote a song. And if you'd like, I'd love to share it.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's right here. Wait, is it here? Oh, here it is. Now, is there any music stand in here? I want to try something out on you. I wrote this a long time ago, but I upgraded it to, let's try this. So let me see how this can go. I'll give it a try. This is kind of scary. I've never actually, I can tell you right now, I've never shared what I just shared with you guys is the first time I've ever tried to share that with anybody ever before. It was very personal matter, like David Lukoff, it wasn't a matter of jumping for joy and excitement. It was more like, wow, I just got this big responsibility, and it's cool that I arrived, but I don't know what the hell to do with it. And if I talk about it, maybe I'm insane. And it's kind of cool to like find a philosophy in the world that validates it in a way, but then humanizes it. So it's like, wow, enlightenment and delusion are really the same thing. It's just two ways of expressing. So it's I went through that, but I still don't know what I want to eat for dinner a lot of times. So anyway. Scared, be afraid no more. The devil's gone, you got to take control. Step right up and stand for what you need. It makes no sense. It's neither wrong nor right. Filter through the crimson light. When you dive into sea, you'll be free. You will find your path, baby, don't worry. I've got a message on constant. It's what you wanna see. Just got to get fast now, deeper than the sea. Oh baby, hear me out. What can you make of that? How have we come so far? Left can't go back. Greater than you think you are. A speck of dust, a shooting star, comes across the atmosphere. Never more to reappear. Alright, so anyway, for the sake of cohesion, if that wasn't totally clear, mind you, I've never done that before, so thanks for so much for listening.
Cool. So, yeah, storytellers.